fought for.
And you mentioned the international partners. What would you most like to see the international community do right now to help support the government in Kabul, both in its counter-corruption campaign and with regards to the upcoming 2019 presidential elections? What role should the United States and the international community play?
First and foremost, have the confidence that we are on the right path. Afghanistan, from a security standpoint, still needs support from the international community. But as we make progress each day, we're building our own security forces to be able to do that job on our own. I get that question quite often on how long we need that support for. But it's already in this current compact that we have with the United States, the 4-year security plan that will help us double our special forces, integrate some of the fighting forces from the Ministry of Interior into the Ministry of Defense, streamline those activities, and improve the logistical capabilities and some of the needs of the military that needs to be able to do its communications better. At the same point, the Afghan Air Force is in the process of being built. By 2023. We will have 314 aircrafts available for the Afghan Air Force that will allow us to do the airlift and do the surveillance, everything that we currently rely on the international security forces to do. We will have that. Our economy, despite all of what we endured in the last 2 years with very little help, and all of the offensive attacks, but the Taliban and other enemies, we were able to improve the Afghanistan's income, and we started off being in deficit. The National Unity Government, when it took over, we were asking the international community to fund our own revenue, to fund, we couldn't fund our own operations, and now it's not only doing that. For the past 2 years consistently, we have been meeting our target of revenue collection far before the year ended. And this is unique. So we are on the right path. I want to say that even in the 8 weeks since the new strategy has been announced and we have had extra additional air support, the Taliban's activity has already changed in its nature. They have gone back to their old tactic of small groups, attack and run operations, rather than fighting like conventional military that they did in the last 2 years. So one of the things that really hurt us in the previous 2 years was the lack of air support, and also meant the lack of having eyes on the ground. We had no battlefield advantage over the Taliban. They could gather in large numbers, in the hundreds, and overrun a district that was protected by, let's say, 10 or 20 security officials who were vastly outnumbered, even if they were larger. And since we didn't have eyes on the ground, we had no battlefield advantage. In fact, the Taliban had, because we were in uniform and they were not. Since this operation has started, they have once again seen that they are being targeted, and they started going the small numbers, which means the checkposts and people out there in the outposts can now defend against it, and free up the rest of our security forces to get engaged in offensive operations. So we see Afghanistan going on a very positive track, and if by, let's assume, in a few years, once we have conducted or completed all of this, the Afghan security forces will be able to do all of what it does on its own. So we are on the path to success. I just want the international community and our partners to know that that is happening, because the people who are working with us at the Resolute Support know that, but many in Washington who are observing don't often realize that that is happening, because people give this argument that, well, what can 3,000 more troops do with that 150,000 troops couldn't? They don't take into account the Afghan security forces on their own.